This is a 20 by 20, massive chessboard, which literally has 400 squares, although it also has one particular problem: there are no pieces on it. And that's why today we will create new, also massive pieces, to place on this board and create the most massive chess variant ever. Let's create those massive pieces. Starting with the pawn, of course, which has to move further to properly navigate this big board. That's why from now on it will be able to move up to 7 squares on the first move, and after that it will move up to 2 squares forwards. Everything else about the pawn in massive chess will stay the same, so let's place it on the third rank on each side. And now we can make the rest of the pieces. For example, the rook. Massive rook, which is actually bigger than normal piece, as it occupies 2 squares, and let me explain to you how it moves. So even though this new rook is different in shape and size, it actually moves fairly similar to the old one, horizontally and vertically. The main difference is in its size, but wait a minute, how does this size thing even work? So the system I came up with is to make the smaller piece capture only a fragment of the bigger piece, just the squares it'll land on to be exact. And regarding larger pieces taking smaller ones, they will not be able to penetrate those pieces, which means that if there's a 2 by 2 piece here, and 2 opponent pieces here, then the big piece will only capture the closer piece. It won't just go through it and capture both. In such way it's going to make the larger pieces more powerful, and at the same time not too overpowered, which is what we want. Alright, now it's time for the massive bishop, which just like the rook occupies 2 squares, but not in the same way. It actually occupies those squares diagonally. And by the way, it also moves just the same as the smaller version of itself, which is honestly kind of boring, which is why the next piece will be completely different. So this is the wall, and I know you didn't expect it, but it also looks like a wall. It's a rather defensive piece, meaning its main function is to protect other pieces. And because it's a defensive piece, it doesn't move very far, only 2 squares in every direction, which might seem like not much, but it takes up 3 squares, so it's not weak by any means. Okay, we've already done 4 pieces, and so let's place them on the board. Beautiful. And this next piece is going to be quite unorthodox. Its name is the car. And this car will drive real fast. I mean, it'll move real far, like this to be specific. To be honest, it moves kind of weird, once like a bishop, then like a rook, like a bishop, and so on. That combined with the fact that it takes up 2 squares makes it a very strong piece, and by the way, we'll have 2 of those on the board. Alright, the car piece is done. Now let's go to the king, because at the end of the day it's him that is needed for the game to actually work. So in massive chess you will have to capture the king in order to win, because let's be honest, checkmating a king that sits on 2 squares would be kinda hard, wouldn't it? So yeah, as I said, this new king will occupy 2 squares, and we're just gonna stretch it out so it actually takes up those 2 squares. And boom, that's pretty much it when it comes to the king. It moves the same as the old one, so let's just throw him onto the board. And then take care of our next massive piece, the massive queen. Alright, so the massive queen will be the last piece taken from normal chess. How about the knight, you may ask? Well, don't worry, it has its place in massive chess 2.0. But anyways, this new queen will be much more powerful compared to the old one, as even though it moves exactly the same, it's 4 times as big, literally covering 4 squares like shown here. This also means that it is 4 times stronger than the normal queen, meaning it's basically strong as hell. Okay, great, on the board it goes. And right next to it is the 8th piece of this variant, which is kind of a replacement for the knight piece, as it's also an animal. Anyways, here it is. Say hello to the bear. Except he doesn't actually look like this. We gotta draw him into reality, and so let's do that right now. Perfect. He looks absolutely beautiful. Let's go to his movement now. So as you guys probably know, bears are pretty dang strong and dangerous, and so that's what we're gonna make our piece like, strong and dangerous. Yeah, this piece ain't no regular honey eater, he's too strong for that, he's gonna be a real piece eater instead. As here's how he will move just like a knight, but infinitely. This might not seem like a lot, but trust me, it can be really dangerous and tricky on a big board like this one. Alright, cool. The bear is done and ready to go on the board. First we'll place the white one, and then the black one. Wow, I honestly didn't really expect this, but we have most of the board filled in, we only have those gaps here that are yet to be filled. And so guess what? It's time for another massive piece. And this another piece is actually called the truck. If you think that the truck is just a better version of the car, then you're actually right, because the truck moves in a similarly weird pattern. Let's take him on the board so I can explain it. Alright, so the truck will start its movement with a 2 square movement diagonally, then it will separate in 2 ways and go 2 square using rook's movement. And from that point on it'll just continually alternate between bishop and rook movement. And also, it'll do that in all directions, forming this pattern. And in case you didn't notice, the truck takes up 3 squares, more than the car, which makes sense as in real life trucks are bigger as well. All of these components combined make it a really strong piece. I mean, personally, I would be scared seeing this abomination of a piece on my board. For this reason, I'm gonna place this piece rather deeper in the setup so that you can't get it out that early into the game. I think this place will be okay. And if you're curious, this is the black version of the truck. Alright, now before we create the next piece, I have to tell you that I also created Massive Chess 2.0, yes, the one I talked about earlier. It's gonna have an even bigger board, a massive version of the knight, and also other massive pieces, like orangutan, or even the whale. Massive Chess 2.0 is now available for my Patreons, so go sign up if you want. Okay, it's over with the salesman chess straps. Now we're back to the chess variant chess straps, because we have a few more pieces on the agenda. First one of them is going to be a big animal. You can write your guesses of what you think it is in the comments, and I'm going to quickly go over its movement so you guys have a little more time to guess. Okay, so this piece will move in a camel's movement at first, and for those of you that don't know, a camel is a chess piece that moves in a 3x1 L shape, and so that's how our piece will move like as well. But that's not it. A singular camel movement isn't enough when you play on a board this massive, and that's why our piece will move again from this square. It's going to move in the same general direction as the first move, also in a camel's movement. Alright, now if we do the same thing in all directions, we have the whole movement of our new piece. The last thing about this piece is that it takes up 2x1 squares, and now watch out because I'm going to reveal what this piece is. Alright, so this piece is actually a hippo. If you guessed it right, then congrats, you must have a sixth sense or something, but anyways, the hippo will be placed over here on our massive board. Great, the hippo is done. And you're probably wondering what the next piece is, but don't worry, I got you. It's the alligator. The alligator is a decently big piece occupying 3 squares horizontally. The drawing for this piece looks very good. I don't know if better than the hippo's drawing, but still looks quite nice. When it comes to the alligator's movement, it's actually pretty simple compared to the previous pieces of this video. It literally just moves like a rook, except the vertical movement is not coming from the square that the alligator is on, but from the 3rd square to the side. And the same thing on the other side. And that's basically it with the alligator's movement. It's simple, it just adds one twist to the rook's movement. Okay, now get ready as this next piece is the last piece of our massive chess variant. But before we make it, we have to fix this board setup, as it kinda sucks now. I mean, just look, everything is in an awkward place, where you have to play a lot of moves to develop that piece. For example, this bishop takes at least 4 moves, or this alligator, which needs this much empty space to get out. The car is also sort of stuck. And so, we gotta change this setup, it's bad. Okay, so this is an empty board where I'll create a new setup. I'm gonna take all the pieces I've created, and place them on this board in an actually good way. Let's start with the piece that you'd have the most trouble developing, the alligator. It needs 3 free squares to the side for it to move freely, and so I think here would be a good place for it. We're gonna place pawns underneath it, and then on the same height as the alligator, in a manner in which he can easily move out of there. The king will stay in the same place as before, and we'll build a little castle around him containing of 2 walls in front of him, and 2 rooks to the sides. Now that the king is safe, I'm gonna place a hippo there, and a car there, and there will also be a bear above the car. Bishops will have their place right next to those pieces, and now it's actually easy to develop them. Alright, to the right we'll then have our queen with the last piece, and to the left there'll be our truck. Alright, great. The setup's all done. I honestly think it's way better than the previous one, just cause it's way less awkward and you can develop pieces more freely. Okay, let's make the last piece finally. Meet the kangaroo.
Hello guys.
Now after this greeting, let's take the kangaroo on the board, where I'll show you his moves. So the kangaroo, as you may know, he likes to jump a lot, like a ton of jumping, which is why I'm going to make his movement very jumpy as well, just so it, matches his abilities and personality. So kangaroo's movement will start with the knight's movement, after that it will utilize the camel's movement, and from then on just alternate between those 2 movements just like many other pieces in this variant. Alright, the kangaroo's finished. And so is our variant. Remember that you can play this variant as well as Massive Chess 2.0 on my website. And that's pretty much it from me. See you in the next video. Goodbye.